Raised.
Okay, we are now recording. Good evening, everyone. I am Amy McMullen, the chair of the Windsor Southeast Supervisory Union Board, and I'm calling our regularly scheduled meeting to order at 6:33. And are there any changes or additions? Yes.
Just if we could move the equity audit update into my report.
Okay.
We'll do it first thing. I see Michael and Jacqueline are here, so they don't have to wait.
Right, yeah, that makes complete sense. Okay, we can do that. So I will take a motion to approve the minutes from June 27th.
Motion. Motion that the minutes are approved on June 20th.
Okay, Rebecca be moved to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second, Elizabeth.
Okay. Are there any changes, additions, clarifications necessary to the minutes? Hearing none, I will do our roll call. Starting with Anne Marie.
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Elizabeth,
Aye.
Jamie.
I abstain. I was on vacation.
Okay. And Nancy.
I abstained because I lost my head and forgot to come.
Rebecca.
Aye.
And I, Amy, am an aye. Great, thank you very much. Next, we have public participation on items not related to the agenda. If there's anyone in our public who would like to speak on anything, now is your time. Hearing none and seeing no hands being raised, this is also a time for our board members, administrators to make any sort of announcements, if there are any.
I'd like to just comment on the superintendent's corner.
Yes.
I think that's great. I really appreciated that. Is anyone can access that, right? The community,
It goes out to
parents,
everyone.
it goes out to everyone. Thank you for that. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. And I wanted to thank Larry. It is so much more user-friendly, the way to access the information now. So I wanted to thank you.
No problem, and I've heard that from a few people since we did it July 1. They were kind of surprised, like people didn't know about it, you know. They said, oh, everything's on one page. I said, that's the goal.
And we can run analytics. It tells me how many people have viewed it,
Oh, okay.
which is pretty awesome. You get emails that people are reading it.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you, Rebecca. We are moving on to the administrative report. We have our equity audit update.
Yes. I won't share my screen yet because I think Michael, or Jacqueline, are you going to be presenting a slide deck tonight?
I will. Yes.
So I'll wait, but I can introduce, this is Jacqueline Williams and Michael Moody. They are from Insight Education. They are going to be helping us with our equity audit. Our internal team of Angie, Katie, and myself met with the team from Insight Education 2 weeks ago and did a preliminary discussion of what it was going to entail and invited them to present tonight. And there is one more team member, I believe, Kathleen England, that's going to be joining at some point to help with the process, but it doesn't look like she's here tonight. So
She's out this week, but there'll actually be a few more members joining, but she'll be leading the work as well. So
So, Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. I think it's okay with everyone. I'll share, do a quick screen share. I have just a few slides to provide you an overview. We're happy to provide the slides after the fact as well. So I can confirm. Okay. Can you all see my slides? I can't see. Perfect. Okay. I can't see anyone right now while I'm sharing my screen, so feel free to jump in, just kind of shout or turn your audio on. I'll share a few slides and I'll stop screen sharing so I can see everyone. We can do Q&A, but we just thought it would be helpful to give a quick overview of the process and the team, and then we're happy to answer questions as well. My name is Michael Moody. I'm the founder of Insight Education Group. We're all educators by training. We've been teachers, coaches, school leaders. I was the chief academic officer in Washington, D.C. For a number of years as well. And this gives you an overview of the team. So you can see myself, Jacqueline Williams is joining. Jacqueline's an analyst in our team. Jacqueline's is the brain behind the research. They'll be doing much of the analytics and analysis of the research as we get into the process and really facilitating some of the work. Kate England, she's on vacation this week, but she'll be what we call partnership manager, which is our project lead, essentially. The way we staff our projects is we always assign one partnership manager. That way you don't have to worry about who you're talking to. We'll have multiple people on our team involved in the process, from analysis of data to stakeholder focus groups. So there'll be multiple people involved, but if you need anything, have any questions along the way, Kate England will be the primary point of contact. She manages us. So you just have to go to her. You'll have her cell phone and email, and she's a senior member of our team as well. She's been a chief academic officer as well in Hartford, but also educator by background, and she manages our equity audit work. And so she's quite familiar with the process and all the tools that we use. This just gives you a little sense of who we are. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What does CAO stand for?
Chief Academic Officer.
Academic Officer. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. I misunderstood you when you were saying that. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I was speaking quickly. Yeah, Chief Academic Officer. This gives you a sense of who we are. I think I've already alluded to some of the pieces. As an organization, we've been engaged in our own equity work for about a dozen years. It started as our own professional learning. And it was through that work that our team was like, we should be doing this with our partner districts. It's work that's really valuable to the work we're doing. We've all kind of had the opportunity to sit in that learner seat when it comes to the equity work. And so all of our team, in addition to being educators, we all walked kind of in the shoes of the equity work. We do the work continuously ourselves, our own professional learning. But as you can see, we engage with our partner districts quite extensively in both equity audit process, but also the work around implementation. So we do a lot of professional development with educators relative to equity and all other sorts of things. We do a lot of strategic planning work in districts as well, helping them connect the dots between the equity work and the strategic planning process. But essentially, our organization for about 20 years has supported deep engagement with school district partners. We also know that the equity work requires all stakeholders to see themselves as critical partners in the work. So we'll be coming to you, the board, and asking lots of questions and doing a focus group with you all relative to this work, but we'll also engage parents and caregivers, educators within the district, support staff, students, as well as the district leadership, really to get a really well-grounded view of the equity work as it's happened in the district and also as it should happen in the district, kind of identifying any opportunities to address inequities that we might find. And we've all been practitioners. There's not anyone you'll work with at Insight who hasn't been in a classroom, both as a teacher. Many of us have been school leaders, district level leaders, but all of us we're educators by training and kind of are quite passionate about what happens in classrooms. When we think about the equity audit process, what we'll be engaging your district in, we ground our work in our equity framework. We built this framework probably 3 years ago. It's just before COVID, actually, because what we were finding is there was a lot of emphasis on the professional learning aspects of equity, particularly with school districts, but maybe not on all the elements of what a district could be focused on relative to equity. So you'll see here, there are 5 domains in our rubric. We talk about opportunity and outcomes quite a bit, but we really want to situate our work and understand what are the beliefs, practices, and policies that drive the work, and then how do these 5 domains really situate themselves to dig in. And so I'm giving you, this is a more granular look, the same 5 domains, just presented a little bit differently, but what you can see here are the bullet points below. And so if you look across each of these domains, The bullet points give you a sense of the types of data we'll be looking at and the type of analysis we'll be trying to do relative to each of those. And you can see on the first one, structures, systems, and resources. We'll look at policies and organizational systems. We'll look at strategic plans when they're available and really try to unpack kind of where does equity show up in those. And then allocation of resources, which hits budgeting and resource allocation relative to central office. I won't necessarily read all of the bullets to you because you might have had this already because this framework is included in the proposal, and I know that you all approved the proposal, so you may already be pretty well versed in them. But I want to show them because I want you to understand and kind of understand how we approach the work and also the domains with which we'll look. When we get to professional learning, we'll look at the professional learning that's already happened, look at alignment and integration of other professional learning initiatives. When we look at culture and climate, we'll definitely get sense of belongingness. We'll ask questions of educators in the district, students in the district, parents and caregivers of their lived experience relative to the work you're doing in the district as well. But we believe that each of these 5 domains really help us get a pretty well-rounded picture of the work in the district. The other thing I'll emphasize here just briefly is, it's likely that there's some work that's been going on relative to equity. We see this in many places. So we don't walk in with an assumption that this is a start from scratch type of process. Part of the reason we meet with district administration, particularly before we even start, is we want to get a real sense of what work has already happened, what might be pressing issues that you'd like to get a sense of, collect some data around. And so we'll do a lot of pre-work before the process begins to make sure that the equity audit process is really tailored to the needs of your district, really going to meet you where you're at. Oftentimes we do some sort of assessment of work that's already been done so we can gauge how effective has it been. If it's been effective, great. How do we build upon that work? Or most of it's been effective, but there might be pockets of opportunities for growth. And if that's the case, then we'll dig into those a little bit and talk about the trajectory for the work moving forward. But our hope is that it doesn't feel like we're not paying attention to the work that's in process in the district. Rather, we're really getting a good sense of what's currently going on in the district and where's the opportunity for growth and how might you look at this for years moving forward. And we'll end with the report with recommendations relative to each of these domains and how the work could look moving forward. Finally, just give you a quick sense of the timeline, and then we can open up to questions. We start with a review of the data. We believe this data review really helps us start to identify where there are opportunities for growth. Are there inequities that show up? Do we see disproportionality in any aspects of the data? It also includes a kickoff from our team to really get to know the district a little bit more, have you get to know our team as well, make sure you know the people behind the work, and examining existing district initiatives. Phase 2 then comes after we do the initial data review. When that data review, we'll get insights into what's going on in the district, and it will give us more questions probably to ask relative to different stakeholder focus groups. So we'll do surveys. These will be anonymous online surveys. We'll distribute them across the district, both internally and externally to stakeholders as you've identified. And we'll deploy those surveys really with an effort of deepening our understanding of what's going on in the district relative to the data, but then preparing us for phase 3, which are stakeholder focus groups. And these allow us to go one level deeper. So we've done the district data review. We've analyzed the data relative to the stakeholder surveys. We have a wealth of data at that point. What we'd like to do then is talk to people, get into your schools and districts and really meet with different stakeholder groups. We'll meet with the administrative team at the district. We'll meet with school leaders, with educators, support staff. We'll do meetings and stakeholder focus with students groups and also parents and caregivers. And if there's any you identify in the phase 1. So sometimes our partner districts, they're working with certain nonprofits, or they have certain external partners who provide tutoring, for example, or other services to the district. Anyone you think that would be valuable for us to speak to relative to this work, we'd like to talk to them to get a sense of their perspectives of the work, what's been effective about it as well. And so phase 3 will be those stakeholder focus groups. And then phase 4 will be the development of the report. The way we build the report essentially is going from phases 1 through 3, really dig into the data. We present findings relative to each of those 5 domains. We have a research base, so we'll essentially say kind of when it comes to this domain, here's what research says is best practice, what we should be paying attention to. Then we'll present the data and the findings, which will include not just kind of quantitative data, but also qualitative data. You'll see quotes from students and teachers, for example. What we try to do is really paint a picture and help understand the data says this, and here's what it looks like and feels like for those who you support in the district. And then we will present a report with recommendations as well. The recommendations will be over, generally it's a 2 to 5 year period, depending on how aggressive the work could be. but really trying to help not just say, here's a bunch of stuff you could do, but here's the timeline in which we think it would be effective. Here, how we might stage the work. Here's a great starting point for the work in terms of recommendations. And so phase 4 will be about that report, at which point we'll vet the report with you all as a team, and then we'll help make it available as you like. So sometimes boards just like to take the report and kind of do with it what they want. We've sometimes presented the findings at a board meeting if you want the public to have access to it as well. And so we'll follow your lead, in terms of how you want the findings to be shared, but just know that the report process will be several stages where you all get to look at the report and give feedback on the report as well. Sometimes on the report, folks will look and say, that feels right, but that doesn't read well to us. We're not sure kind of we understand what that means. And so we might go back into the data. We might hold one more focus group, but there will be an opportunity for us to get feedback on the report itself to make sure that we've captured everything effectively and accurately as part of the process. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and open it up to questions and see if we can't help answer any questions relative to the work itself. And I'm going to stop sharing right there.
So if anyone has questions, they can just raise their hand. Davis.
Yeah, first, Dr. Moody, I want to thank you. There's not a lot of details, I think, that weren't covered in that overview. So I appreciate the exhaustive amount of work that goes into putting that all out. I guess the only question I would have is when it comes to how the report is presented, and I know that you've said that we can kind of take the lead on how that is. Are there any methods or modes of presentation that you've found have been more or less successful for districts that you've worked with in the past, or is it kind of a different strokes kind of situation? There's not really like a one size fits all solution to that.
There's not necessarily one size fits all. And Jacqueline, if you have anything to add, please feel free to pop in. But there's not one size fits all. But I would say when we found it to be most effective, generally I would say two things. Number one, there's some sort of engagement process with us and your team up front to make sure you fully understand the report. You believe kind of what you're reading, and if there are things that make you scratch your head, you understand why they're there, and actually we can show data to support that. And so we want to make sure that you all as a board and a district administrative team fully understand the report, because once it goes public, obviously there are going to be lots of opinions about a lot of things in it. And so we want to make sure you feel prepared to do that. We've also found it, quite frankly, to be most effective when you present the findings versus us. And we're happy to do it. But the reason is when you present the findings, your stakeholders know you. They understand, they know who you are. They either elected you to office, or they're stakeholders because they're teachers or parents and in the district itself. And so the message coming from you tends to read a little better. And also it helps everyone understand how you all as a district community are engaged in the work. Oftentimes people are worried that it's going to be a report that we kind of drop in your lap and kind of walk away and say, okay, great, good luck with that. And you're left not knowing really what to do with the report. And that's just not how we operate. We're a support organization. So, we oftentimes partner and collaborate on things like the presentation itself. So if you all at a board meeting want to present, we'll oftentimes build the deck for you. Sometimes we'll do a mock presentation. So we can vet questions that may come up from the community. And you feel prepared to present those to the community in a way that's most effective. But, I think community members especially often want to see that you're engaged in the work and you're not passive bystanders. The equity work is challenging, especially right now. The kind of political context is quite hot, as I'm sure you're well aware. And so we like to anticipate all kind of everything we might see relative to an equity audit process and the report of findings as well. And so, I would say the best case is typically us working together to collaborate on a presentation style. We can help build the collateral that you might need. Sometimes it's a one-pager that you want to hand out. Sometimes it's a PowerPoint. Sometimes we'll do a video presentation and we'll give a 15-minute video overview of our presentation findings, but then you present it and you can kind of lay the context around that for your community as well. And so I'm not trying to be evasive at all. What I'm trying to say is that, we want it to feel like it's appropriate for how you typically share these types of findings with your community as well. And sometimes districts go all out and kind of do pressers and all that. And sometimes they keep it a little more tight because of the nature of the report and the fact that you all have structures and systems already in place of how you share this work. And so we'll work with Christine and others to make sure that it's suited to your context.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, of
Sounds
course.
like there's a pretty wide breadth of how we can go about this. I'm looking
There
forward
is, and we've seen
to
districts do
where
a
we
bunch of
land.
different ways. Yeah.
Rebecca?
Thank you. That was a very helpful presentation. So I have a couple of questions. You're aware, I think you've had an opportunity to read that you would be working and interviewing 4 different communities.
Correct.
And okay, correct, right? 4 different communities. So I just wanted to ask you, what are you looking at right now as a time frame? You know, when do you think you will start? And I know you mentioned interviews with families and students, so I suspect that part of this is also going to go into the school season when the students are in the school.
Absolutely. Jeffin, I saw you come on mute. You want to?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be happy to take this one. So you're referencing 2 sets of stakeholder engagement. So I'll start with the very first and being the stakeholder surveys. And our intention is to, of course, work with the district or the supervisory union in which time frame works the best. But right now, what we have outlined is mid-September to October to conduct the stakeholder surveys. And you did allude to the 4 groups in which we would be surveying, being school leaders, district leaders if wanted, as well as parent and caregivers, and then secondary students. So we do try to limit the student engagement to secondary just to be able to make sure the content is appropriate and that there's enough experiences to be able to truly answer to what we're asking on those surveys, which are truly about what the processes are around equity, what that might look like in the school setting, as far as curriculum and engagement is concerned. So we do try to really see what the lived experience is like based on those 5 domains that Michael was talking about earlier in the presentation. After we conduct the stakeholder surveys, we are looking to conduct follow-up focus groups. So part of that would be going into October, November, if need be. We try to keep a 3-week time frame for focus groups to make sure that we're engaging as many parent and caregivers as well as secondary students as possible. But when we start working with school leaders or school staff, whether that's certificated or certified, as well as classified, we try to make sure that that fits in a schedule that's already kind of set for educators and staff. So we're not kind of getting them outside of school hours. So again, we would try to do that later in the fall, being October. But if we feel that we need to collect additional data, we will extend that to November if need be. But again, none of these timeline changes will occur without, making sure that this is something that fits for the district. If that doesn't answer your question, I'd be happy to kind of add some more. Just let me know what I can clarify for you.
The only thing I would add is, our goal will be, our goal will be to have a report in hands finalized before you go out on holiday break. We like to get it into this year. That will get into anticipation of, after the holiday, oftentimes folks go to planning for next year, the budgeting process, all kinds of things that might have implications relative to this work. And so, our hope is that you have a report in hand. And it's doable depending on your timelines, but we want to get, what we'll probably do is do some engagement before school starts, collect as much data as we possibly can, give everyone a break to get schools open, which is important, and let the dust settle a little bit and kind of let everyone get settled into school. And then we'll pick up the process again. And that's when we get into this surveys and stuff, because then people will be settled in, and then we can kind of use the early part of the school year to collect that data.
Thank you.
Nancy?
I want to follow up on Rebecca's. When we get the report, is it as our district as a whole, or do you break out the various schools that could be very different from each other in the various communities?
We will give you a report with the district as a whole, but the data will, if we see disparities in data or the data looks different across those different communities, that's stuff we'll highlight in the report itself. And that's not uncommon. Oftentimes, even in more kind of quote unquote traditional districts with a single community, we'll oftentimes see disproportionality maybe between secondary and elementary or across different schools. And it will when we see different school data, we're like, oh, maybe that school leader is doing more equity work than the other or something like that. So it's not uncommon for us to really, even though it's one umbrella, to really find different different findings kind of within the larger kind of the supervisory unit. So we would definitely have, it would be one report, but we would, if we need, where it's appropriate and when we need to, we'll definitely pull out data and kind of cite data among those different 4 communities as needed.
Thank you. That's
Yeah, of
just,
course.
no.
Elizabeth, did you start to raise your hand earlier? No? Any other questions or comments?
I can share, we have a meeting with the team, the administrative team has a meeting August 11th, I believe, in the morning, so we're gonna get started.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. We're excited.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing the information on how the equity audit is going to work. That's very good.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us. We're looking forward to supporting you in this work. So thank you. Thanks for doing the work too. This is really important work, and districts tend to shy away when it feels a little controversial, but I appreciate your commitment to it. I think your students will benefit for sure. So thanks.
It's very important work, so thank you for helping us.
Thanks, Michael and Jacqueline. You certainly are, it's okay if you leave us, but you're welcome to stay. Like to you.
Thank you for
Thanks,
having us.
everyone. So nice to meet everyone. See you all soon.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so I'm going to present. That was part of my report. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to skip ahead because we just did the equity audit update. Again, we'll get started in the next couple of weeks, and we're pretty excited. They're very organized and experienced team, so I feel like we're in really good hands.
Right, and
Yeah.
it just this presentation, they're ready.
Yeah.
They're ready to go
Yeah.
and
They do this work.
very experienced in how to get it started.
Just a couple of little things. I received an email from the Hartford Area Career Technical Center Advisory Board, and apparently there's always a representative from the board that goes to these. There are, I believe, 4 meetings a year.
Right, and it's usually from the Mount Escutney School.
It is the Mount Escutney? Okay,
Yes.
so we can talk about that, the Mount Escutney, but anybody that's on that board can think about if they want to be the representative.
Didn't we, yeah, I think
Did you
Bill,
report, somebody already agreed?
yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think
Very
we
well.
do that at reorganization.
Okay, so I probably missed that.
That's okay.
So it's Bill, okay. And that makes sense
I think
because
so.
he's already up there.
Yeah,
Excellent. Okay. Just to keep you in the loop, we've been doing a lot of work this summer. And when I say we, I mean mostly Brittany. She's leading a lot of the frontline work on the back end for us. But I wanted to let you know we've been having meetings with them to get our professional development forms and the system in place for new staff. They'll be using the system. All the mandatory trainings are going into it. It's pretty slick and it's going to be really efficient, but there is a lot of work on the back end, getting people in the right groups for approval on different forms, and Brittany's taken the lead on that. Angie and I just kind of watch in awe.
It's a tremendous amount of work.
It is, but it's going to be great.
So good, and it'll give us the data that, a way to capture data that we haven't had before, which will be really important for us in terms of our plans and our compliance and all that stuff that we do. So yeah, it's good stuff.
And it will be set up so that there are trainings all staff have to take. In the spring, I think Brittany shared this when she reported. She did a survey of all staff, what trainings they've done. She's created a system where she can keep track and place people where they need to be so that they're not having to take trainings multiple times. They have a lot of voice and choice in what they're taking, but what we're going to be putting into the system eventually will align with the strategic plan goals. So when you're signing up in, I think it's my learning plan, you can go in and select particular training, and it will, it'll ask you which goals it aligns to, so that people are doing, we're doing the work that we need to be doing to
Oh,
move
that's
the work
great.
forward. Yeah. There's also some options for other things. I mean, there are specific things that teachers sometimes need to work on personally, and that will be incorporated into that system as well. So pretty exciting.
I was familiar with a system similar to this. What was also very good about the system was that the person, which would probably be, potentially be Brittany, kept dates of teachers' recertifications. So if my recertification was in 3 years, I needed to, over a 3-year period, complete whatever, however many units. And every year, this person, although you were monitoring it yourself, but this person would also monitor this with you. And that 3rd year, when your recertification was due, you needed to make sure by that point, your 3-year packet had been reviewed over every year, was signed off, and you would have all of the units necessary for you to become certified. And if you didn't, fall into that plan, it was like, not it was dealt with, but it was it was helpful.
Yeah.
Because I think what it helped some of the staff do is like, they had someone else that was helping them sort of monitor this, as opposed to it all being on you and saying, oh my gosh, I have like 60 units left or whatever, and I only have 30 of them, because I've just been doing so much of this that I haven't been able to get to that. I just wonder if that's something maybe for Brittany to think about. I don't know what the program looks like, but I thought it was really helpful, because also whenever professional development opportunities were offered by the school, you had the opportunity to say, I need like 3 more or whatever, and you would sign up for it. And so it was a way for the school to continue to provide the professional development that staff needed, and also help staff monitor their professional development over the 3-4 year period, and also made sure that the staff was recertified at the time that they were required to be.
Yeah, having structure to help people stay in line and not have to personally keep track and keep looking at a calendar. There's already something in place, a system.
Eventually, it's going to tie into our supervision and evaluation.
Oh, yeah, it was tied into that also.
It'll tie all in, and so it will, and I think it's was that SAU 6?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes,
I
you
used
were
that as
part
well.
of it.
So it's very similar from what I've seen so far.
Okay, yeah, that was, because I think that, but I think the person who did it full time.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means.
In Vermont too, we recertify every 5 years.
5
So it's
years.
even more documentation, I would imagine.
Oh.
I don't know how New Hampshire works, but I think it's less time, and so it's fewer
I think it's 3 years.
stuff, fewer things that you have to keep track of. But what is really cool about the system that we don't have is, so if they do local PD, and then I present them with a certificate, if they don't grab it out of their email and put it in a folder in their drive or print it, then I'm getting emails from people kind of in a panic. Where are all my certificates? And, it's only due to my organization that I'm able to provide any. Like sometimes they don't have titles on it, like I don't put their names on them, but this system won't keep track of that. And if they take a course, it also will remind them to like they have 30 days or 60 days, 30 days to upload their evidence, their certificate,
Right.
then it's all right there with them, for them.
Yeah.
So,
Exciting.
That's great.
it doesn't do the step of putting it into the Vermont system for them,
But it's all right there.
but it's all right there. And we're also trying to make any of our local PD, the write-ups that have to, so they follow the same format as the write-ups that they have to do in the Vermont system. So it saves them a step if it's all right there on their certificate or something they can access in the system. It's easier if they wait until the last year before their certification, then they have to crawl 90 credits in, which, I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, right.
It does happen.
It does.
It does. People panic. Yeah, but this will be user friendly and, yeah.
Nancy, you had your hand raised?
I'm okay now. Thanks.
Okay, great.
All right, we'll keep you posted. We got another training on Friday, so.
We do, and on the employee evaluation
Yeah.
system. It's the other side of it.
All right, moving forward. So Angie and I have been meeting with this group called the First Friday Group. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was, it's led by Mike Nicholson. Some of you may remember him. He was our consultant from Battelle who worked with us on our portrait of a graduate work and our strategic plan. And when the pandemic hit, we just all started going to Zoom meetings Friday afternoons and talking about how to grow student agency and voice and choice in our schools. And it's a group of people from across the country who are passionate about this work. So they've been really excellent meetings. And Angie, Brittany, Patty, and I we drove to Virginia to see Mike in action at a school implementing some of this work with administrators and teachers. So we've been in touch with him. And we, before David left, we were engaged in conversations with Mike about how we could go about moving this work forward with our teachers and being able to provide some support and training because it is a shift. When you're asking teachers to let go of control and let students lead their own learning, that looks very different for many, many teachers, and it's scary and it's hard work. So we've been meeting with him regularly, and we have a proposal or plan to bring to you tonight that includes Mike Nicholson, which will look like he will come to Vermont 4 times, and we may be partnering with another district in Vermont, so when he comes, we can both take advantage of his work with us. But the last time we spoke to him, we said, Mike, it was very clear in one of our sessions with Mary Gannon that we don't have a clear and compelling vision for our SU. And is that work that you do with districts? It seems like it should tie into the strategic plan, and we've done all that work for nothing, right? They should align. And we had lots of conversations about how our strategic plan it is our vision. It's just not, it's not clearly articulated in a short, succinct way or fashion. So we would like Mike to come to Vermont, work with our teachers on student agency. On those same days when he's here, he would like to engage a parent group to talk about this topic and lead the work forward with the parent group. And he would like to do some community forums with us and work on our vision over the course of the year. And so we're really excited about that because those of you that know him know how versed he is in this work, the research he does around student engagement and student agency, and the things that we're learning now about it. And I've attached, so excited I'm getting ahead of myself. So there's our plan forward with him. He is no longer with Battelle. He started his own organization called Learning Inspired. And that outlines what we'd like to do with him this year. But I have attached, and I'll share this with you, a couple of things that he shared with us about the research on student agency and does that impact academic performance. And the research is starting to come out on that topic to show that it does. And it increases not only academic performance, but student wellness, because when students have some control, it's not funny. There's
like
something,
adults.
Yeah. So I've attached a couple of articles. We won't get into them tonight, but you can certainly read them at your leisure. They're pretty interesting. The proposal for the Atlantic article was actually written by a couple of people in the First Friday group. So that is our plan for the year. It ties right in. I'm going to go to the next slide, and I'll take questions. it ties right into our work with Mary Gannon and the visioning work that we talked about with her. She is willing to actually work in consultation with Mike. He gets the visioning started, we get the equity audit back, and she kind of comes on board and helps us lead some of those community forum discussions that tie the vision to the equity work. So that's our rough outline. I'll go back and take questions on, I thought Rebecca had a question on that.
I did. I just had, I needed some clarification because I think in the past, when I've heard administration talk about, I guess, the Battelle organization, I was under the impression or understanding that supposedly they were going to return and provide supportive work to the school district. So my question is are we now talking about Mike separate from Battelle plus Battelle?
No,
I mean,
not plus Battelle. Mike has left Battelle and is continuing the work. I want to say it's the same work without Battelle.
Yes.
And so our preference would be to go with Mike.
Okay, so so what you would consider is not continuing with, bless you, with Battelle, but considering, Mike as that fill-in for Battelle.
Yes, he came, he did the work with us. I mean, he guided the portrait work. He wrote the strategic plan with us. He's done all the research. He did the SWOT analysis. He knows our community. He knows our team. And I can honestly say I've never seen anyone as passionate about this work as Mike Nicholson. He actually, we weren't able to go, but he did what did he call it? A summit for people all across the country that are doing this work. It happened during our administrative retreat, so we weren't able to go.
We tried.
Unfortunately, we really tried. But brought these people together to talk about this work and how to move it forward and how to support teachers and communities, because as you heard at the forum we had in the spring, it's a new concept for parents as well. It's not the traditional students sitting in desks listening to the teacher deliver information. And there's a place for that. We're not saying that goes away completely, but we want to engage our students in doing the work and being curious and passionate about what they're learning and integrating the curriculum and being able to engage in the learning in a way that works for the student. So Mike leads that work. So yeah, he would be our choice to move the work forward. I don't know if you were there, Rebecca. For that.
No, I was not, but I do remember some of the conversations afterwards about it. So I just needed clarification on that. I knew that I knew there was an interest in continuing with Battelle. So I just wanted to know, we're now talking about Mike instead of Battelle, so we are, okay?
Yeah.
One thing I think that's worthy to note is that the work that we do with the staff will also be optional, because we are modeling for the staff what we want them to be doing with their students. Challenge by choice. You're interested in this work, come and find out what it is. We're having 4 sessions. Come and learn about it, support each other. We're going to have students there, and it's just going to be, I think it's going to be exciting, challenging, and fun and interesting. So I think it's going to be the best work we do all year.
Mm-hmm. And he will connect it to the why. I mean, he took us through that process when we were working with him for the portrait. The world has changed, and education needs to change to meet the needs of 21st century learners and workers. And those skills that kids need to go into college or the workforce are very different now than they were, 100 years ago when schools were kind of created for what society needed at that time. So he has some incredible research around that and some very, videos that just kind of amaze you when you watch them. Wow.
Yeah.
So,
a lot of, wow.
Yeah. So we are really excited, and we're looking for the board to kind of give us the go-ahead on this plan for the work for the course of the year. It will take, if we do it right, it'll take the year to get to that clear and compelling vision with him. And it'll take those 4 sessions with the community and the staff and the students. And we want that. We want to get it right.
Right.
So we don't want to rush it. So I would love to hear what you're thinking. I don't think we need a motion, but just a,
Well, I think the work that we've done so far, if we were to stop, it would be really disappointing for everyone who has done the work.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of time and effort put forth, and the fact that we're doing the equity work, and we absolutely have to have flexible pathways for our students. And not only, there's that law thingy,
right.
but there's also, I think it's morally correct, to provide all the educational opportunities for students based on how they learn, what they want to learn, parameters, of course, because there needs to be a foundation. But at the same time, if a person is just put in a chair and said, okay, listen, they're going to rebel and they're not going to be the best that they can. So I think we need to move forward with Mike. Nancy, your hand is raised.
Yes, I think this is just the next logical path in the way our school and our boards are working. And I think it sounds wonderful and exciting. And I can't imagine anyone not wanting it, but if you're not going to take a vote, that I'm a definitely yes, please go ahead.
Excellent.
I think it's so important. What resonates with me, besides what Amy shared, is the piece that that he's willing to work with the community, because I think that many of us are in many ways understand that the value of flexible pathways, and but I think we want to get parents on board. We want the community to understand what that word means. And I think that we need to have those conversations with them. We need to bring them in. We need to get that information to them on the superintendent's corner. They need to know, okay,
It's coming.
the school is talking about flexible pathways. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that we've been talking about flexible pathways for about 8 years now.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to be able to poll, a couple of parents and say, do you know what flexible pathway? So I think that the idea that he's saying, this is not just working with staff, this is working with your communities.
And also asking students, so
And students.
what is your experience?
Yeah. And that was Mike. He said, I need you to get me a parent group. And, he'll work with staff on their half days, their early release days. He'll work with a parent group, and he wants us to form that group. He wants to bring people in, and then he'll do the forum on top of that for the larger community. So if you have ideas of people that would be great on that, I'm calling it a parent advisory committee. Well, we may use them in different ways as well to vet some other things. Just send them my way. We're getting a list together now. So
That may be a great idea also to have this parent advisory group, but not make those parents feel like I need to be at all those meetings. I need to do,
Right.
and say, there's a large group of you, and some of, we don't want you to feel burdened, but we want you at the table, and so, we're going to work with you so that you can be available for certain things, and not for everything.
Right.
But I think that would be also a very different way of thinking of parents, teachers, associate, what I grew up with, PTA.
Right.
You know,
Right. And we'll feed them. Get them some.
We will.
Oh, feed them while they're there, for sure. Greg will help with that. Okay. Does anybody else have any comments? Are we good to move forward with?
I also want to comment on, apparently Mary Gannon has been engaged in this conversation, and she feels that this is something that she can also
Support. Oh,
and
yeah.
work with. I
Yeah.
think that bringing those parties together
Mhm.
would be powerful and,
Yeah.
and helpful, because they're all seeing parts of our community
Right.
that, and bringing that together would be
Yeah.
very helpful.
And we did. We talked to both of them about, giving students voice and, bringing them to the table and having conversations. It is about equity, right? Like,
Exactly.
it really naturally goes together. So, yeah, she's on board. And we did meet with Mary. Angie and I have been meeting with her. She wanted me to extend an offer to do some more work with the board in the fall, if the board is interested in that work. She has been assisting us with the hiring process for the DEI coordinator, which the position has been posted, and we already have 3 applicants. So we're excited about that. Yes.
Wow. How many?
We have 3
Wow.
so far, which is awesome, knowing the hiring pool and the, sometimes we're getting 0 applicants for teaching positions. So this is very exciting. Working on setting up the interview committee. We want it to be diverse. We want multiple perspectives on that committee. So I have sent out lots of emails to parents, students, board members, administrators. I think I have about 14 people right now. 2 students have checked their email over the summer and have responded. They would like to be on it. They're high school students. So I'm giving them a little bit of time. I'll make some phone calls because I know the students aren't probably actively checking their emails. But she has offered to meet with that committee, help us develop some interview questions together. If it works out in her schedule, I'm going to try to make that happen. And then she will come on board once we hire that person and help the coordinator take the action steps from the anti-racism committee and really figure out a priority list of what we're going to work on and tackle first. But she'll support that person in the beginning to get that person off to a strong start, which I think is important. And she is willing to come in and work with Mike and help us with the sharing out of the equity audit results, if that makes sense. So.
Right, and having the coordinator and the equity audit happening at the same time, I think that's wonderful.
Yep, that person will help.
Having some voice in that.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth, your hand is raised.
Thank you. I just want to say that I really, really love the paragraph at the end of the job announcement about how studies have shown that people don't necessarily apply for jobs when they don't feel they fit 100% of the qualifications. I thought that was really so poignant and well put.
Well, Mary helped with that. I'm not going to take all the credit. She certainly helped guide that. So yeah, and it's interesting to think about it. I mean, we went back and forth. Do we require a master's degree? That's going to really eliminate a lot of people from applying, and that's not what we're looking for. So if you have lived experience, that counts. And so yeah, it is a shift in how we think when we advertise for positions in education. And I appreciate it. I think it's the right thing to do. So, and I can certainly share that posting with the board if they're interested in reading it.
I'd be interested.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Job posting. The next slide is about our just general hiring updates for the SU, just so you know where we're at. We are fully staffed at Heartland and Weathersfield. We are short in the Mount Escutney School District. I believe Albert Bridge is fully staffed, but Windsor is not yet. So Katie still is looking to hire 2 special ed case managers, 6 support staff members, although she's had a couple of interviews today, so that she may have found a couple of people. We're still trying to hire a 3rd grade teacher. That's critical. The 4th grade teacher, we have a plan to combine, the 4th grades will be a little bit larger in numbers. It's that bubble class, the 3 3rd graders, 3 3rd grade classes. So we can manage with that, but that is a posted position. We're looking for a 6-8 teacher, a health teacher, and Colleen, Kate, and Sergio and Jen have a plan to cover the high school health required coursework in health if we don't find a teacher. So they do have a backup plan for that. And they're still looking for a French teacher. They also have a backup plan for that because we're really just not getting applicants. And they don't have a huge number of students that want to take French, so they have a plan, a flexible pathway for the kids that want to be able to engage in French. So that's where we're at.
I wonder if you would
Title
ask
interventions.
students what other language they would want besides, to see, you know,
What they're interested in.
see if,
Yeah.
what they're interested
Yeah,
in.
that's a great point.
Yeah.
What did you say, a
The
title?
title
position?
interventionist is not on that list.
So we're missing a title interventionist at Mount,
435
in Mount Scottney. Okay.
at Windsor.
At Windsor. And Jim reports he needs 3 part-time maintenance staff members. That's what he needs to hire. So we're still optimistic that we're going to fill these slots. And we're going to be creative if we don't, and we'll make it work. But I just wanted to give you an update on that, which leads right into our hiring employment policy, which I think is on items for discussion, so we can talk about it then, because I can come back to that slide. I know I reported at Mount Scottney board meeting that Summer Academy had started and is in full force, and it's just going so swimmingly well. I wanted to mention it again tonight. About 100 children on average. We have attendance of about 90 because of summer vacations and plans for families, and some kids are at camps, so they're missing a little bit, but on average about 90 kids a day. It's really going really well. I can't say enough. I can't thank Katie enough for all her hard work putting it together. So I had to put her in a picture to show her.
I'm sure she'll love
Yeah, she'll love
that
that.
picture.
And then I wanted to show you Craig. He's outside every day. Parents can come and pick up, or community members pick up summer meals for kids 18 and under. At first, he was doing about 20 a day pickup. He's up to about 35, he said. So it has grown. We're still delivering on Mondays to 84 kids are getting lunches delivered by Mount Scottney Hospital. They partnered with us. But I just wanted to shout out to Craig as well. And he sits there from 9 to noon every day. Yeah. Today he was
That's
inside
great.
because it was raining.
That's really great that, you know,
Yeah.
they're feeding the kids.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's wonderful. So, and that concludes the report, and I will stop sharing my screen and we can go back to the hiring minutes for discussion.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for Christine? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very informative. We are moving on to items for discussion. We had our equity audit update. It's very exciting.
It is, yeah.
Could talk the rest of the night about that. Next, we have item B. It's the pupil privacy policy. So there were pupil privacy rights, which is the policy, and then there's a procedures, and I believe, will the procedures go into the handbook?
Yeah, we've talked about where to house procedures, and we don't have a ton of procedures for many policies, but Larry is going to work his magic, and we're going to have the procedures. We're talking about a staff section of the website where we can house things for staff in one easy location, kind of like we've done for the board and the board packets.
Mhm.
So there will be a place for procedures so that everybody can see them and implement them.
Right. Would it also make sense, though, to have something like this in a student handbook?
Yeah.
So that when it
People
goes
know.
home, parents
Mhm.
would know, or students themselves having agency
Yep.
to know kind of what is happening.
Do you have any intentions of, or is that done annually, reviewing the student handbook?
We just spent days at our admin retreat.
Okay, I didn't know that, so thank you for
Yeah,
answering that
we look at it
question.
every year. And 2 years ago, I think, we took all of our local handbooks and spent a lot of time creating one WSESU handbook. So it's
Mhm.
consistent. This year, there was a team, we got into subgroups during retreat, and there was a team that updated, because we keep track of things during the year that might need to be adjusted. They worked on that. We had another team working on the employee handbook, so we'll have a WSESU employee handbook, and these would be appropriate in there as well, so that everybody's
Right.
knows.
Yeah. Great.
Yep.
Elizabeth, your hand is raised.
Is there a way to, would it be possible to have all of those things accessible online?
I think so.
Yeah, if you want to know the procedures public and everything, I'd probably put it on the board thing, even though it's not really a board thing, but I could put it in the board portal. It'd be a separate folder from policies.
Just called procedures.
Well, I mean, would it be possible to like somehow have a link between the policies doc and the procedures doc that goes along with it?
That goes with?
Link them to each other?
Yeah, I mean, if I could do that, if I had everything and I could help Lori with it, I could make it sure it gets done.
That would be great, because like if somebody went to look up, for example, just as an example, that anti-racism policy, the procedures doc is just as important as the policy. And if they looked up the policy, they wouldn't know to then go to the procedures.
Yeah, I like it. I like it better than creating a separate folder.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And
I
not
think
every.
it's one more thing for people to look at, so
I agree.
we could put it, attach it essentially to the policies through a hyperlink. We can do that.
And not every policy has procedures either,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
But the ones that do, the procedures are important.
To be with it.
Yeah.
And I'll work with Lori on that.
Thank you. So this is the third reading of the pupil privacy rights. If we are ready,
I just have a question. I don't think I have the most updated one. And I remember conversation about taking, thank you. Thank you.
so I will take a motion to adopt the pupil privacy rights and the associated procedures.
So moved.
By Nancy, thank you. Is there a second?
Second, it's Beth.
Thank you. Are there any comments, questions that anyone has? Jamie?
First, I apologize that my camera is off. I'm on my cell phone trying to preserve battery life.
Yeah, all right.
So I have two questions. So on the pupil privacy rights procedures, there's probably about 3/4 of the way down, there's a bullet point that starts with religious practices, affiliations, etc. And then the next sentence is parents/guardians or students 18 years of age or older. Does that actually belong with that bullet point, or is it supposed to be broken out?
broken out.
Or better connected.
To the following.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Or, okay, hold on. Additionally, no student shall be required to take part in, okay, so, I think what needs to happen, and thank you, Jamie, for catching this, parents, guardians, students, 18 years, that should be a separate, all on its own, and then the bullet point, because they have the right to opt out of the following activities, which is then the collection, et cetera, et cetera.
And the 18 years, it should be of age, not or age.
Correct, yeah.
And then a question on the pupil privacy rights. For number 6, it's referencing in the second line, subparagraph 6 above. Should that say 5 maybe? I'm not sure what it's referencing, but isn't it's referencing 6 in 6.
It's probably 5 because we eliminated 4. Right, so she needs to fix that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, good catch, thanks. With those corrections, I will do a roll call to adopt this policy, starting with Anne Marie.
Aye.
Beth,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Elizabeth,
Oops. Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Rebecca,
Aye.
and I, Amy, am an aye. It has been adopted with those corrections.
With those corrections. Yep, I'll talk to Lori about that.
Great, thank you. And let me see, where are we next? So we have a draft of the hiring policy. In our packet, there was the draft from Vermont School Board Association. And then there was, wow, that doesn't turn off so quickly. Okay, sorry. As we all go wandering around to get the lights to turn back on. Not that being in the dark is bad. So does anyone have any questions on, actually, were there 3? No, just the 2. I think what we will be doing is seeing what we currently have that had been adopted in 2019, look at how it, what might need to be added from the 2020 version from Vermont School Board Association, and then come back at a future meeting for a second reading. If anyone would like to work on that, you're more than welcome. I guess contact.
Yeah, Elizabeth and I met to look a little bit at some examples or ideas around hiring kind of / employment policies. I did reach out to Tom up at Hartford and chatted with him about what he does up there. And because they're policy governance, he actually reports out on a whole bunch of policies that kind of roll into hiring and employment that
Right.
relate to that. So
Yeah, like the means and means.
yes, yeah. In fact, he shared his report with me. I put it in here for you to look at if you're interested in that slide. That there are, I think, 10 policies that go into that he reports out on. But he did talk about his, the practices they use at Hartford. He's created, and he did share like for interviews, a rating scale that he'll use when hiring people, which is helpful. That kind of rolls into that.
Okay, yeah, that would be good, just for consistency,
Mhm.
so that, and equity.
Right, and equity, yeah.
Mhm.
So we talked about, Elizabeth and I chatted about, where the strategic plan fits in when we're hiring. Should we be communicating what our strategic plan is when we're hiring people? They need to know what we believe in and what we value. And
I would say
we do.
Yes.
And if whether that's in the policy or the procedures, where it makes the most sense, Tom's opinion on that was, in the procedures probably makes the most sense for that piece, but that's all stuff we should be talking about. And so,
Right. Did I see on that slide that you had the vital communities?
Yeah.
They're very helpful.
they had some hiring practices. I can pull it up if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. We were just kind of searching for examples and things that we could kind of look at to help guide us. So let me share. And Elizabeth, certainly jump in if I'm not accurately communicating everything. So you've got the current policy, it's in your packet, and the VSBA updated policy. I think they updated in 2020, so soon after we adopted.
Yeah,
Tom's report is there. We also, at one of our trainings with Lavelle Brown this year, he shared a resource about sustaining educators in College, Vermont. But here's the vital communities. Let me take
Maybe
you
it's
there.
something.
Christine, it's Elizabeth. Did you not get the link that I sent you to that little video?
The link was, you sent me it was, when I clicked on it, it was the Sustaining Educators of Color in Vermont. So I was gonna ask you if you have it, we can play it tonight. I think that would be helpful.
I have it. Hold on a second.
Okay. So they have listed, why is that not showing? Oh, I've got to click a different tab, hold on. My mistake. Share this tab instead, that might help. Oh, that's small too, but we can get let's see if I can make it bigger. So it goes over their hiring practices. Oh, there's Beth. Thanks, Beth. She shared it. It talks about their mission statement, what they're committed to, principles of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, what they do and to ensure that they're not discriminating. And then they have a list of the things that they do. Review job descriptions for implicit bias in gender terms, value lived experiences, some of the things we've already started talking about, and I think will likely come out in our equity audit as things we need to work on. So we were just looking at some ways to engage in the conversation to help inform what our policy and protocols might look like. So thank you, Beth, for putting the link in there.
You bet. And if anyone has questions about their hiring processes, I'm happy to help. I was part of developing those before I left there.
Oh, so maybe you should join Elizabeth and I.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that it has commitments right there. I mean, bro.
And I will say it has not been easy. you know, when you're stuck in a box of what you've always done for hiring processes, and it's always urgent, you know, or so it feels like you need to get somebody tomorrow kind of feeling, that putting a lot of these processes in place really takes time. And so that's probably one of the biggest things, is that just be ready for taking that time, and that it's going to be a slower process, and that's okay. That's just what it is.
I have to say that my interaction with folks from Vital Communities has always been a really good interaction. So it sounds like they've been very careful about who is it that they've hired, because, you know.
I think since they became Vital Communities.
Yes, I mean, everyone I've had any sort of interaction with from that community, from that organization, they're just on top of their game.
Yeah.
So so kudos to your hiring process.
Yeah.
And,
We'll work on that.
it works.
Elizabeth, did you find the link
I did. I put it in the chat.
in the chat? Okay, let me stop sharing, and then I'll go. We watched, Elizabeth found this video, and I will play it. Do I have to share my screen to play it? Looks like I do. Hold on a second. I hope you'll be able to hear it. Okay, here we go. All right, it's not long. Everyone hear it?
So as we talk about hiring, we recognize that there are different kinds of challenges that you may be facing. Some may be focused on diversifying the applicant pool. Some may be focused on diversifying your staff. Others may be looking at hiring practices that you have as a school district or organization, and examining how inclusive and equitable those are. And so we recognize that there are connections between diversity, equity, and inclusion, but that they are also unique in their own right. And so I just want to share briefly a statement from a mentor and friend, Derica Blackman, who once said that diversity is a fact, inclusion is a strategy, belonging is a measure, and equity is the goal. So often these words get bundled together so much that they become interchangeable or almost indistinguishable. And we want to just bring a level of clarity and distinction to them. Diversity is the presence of variety, different thoughts, backgrounds, identities, and approaches. Inclusion is about the strategies that we use to incorporate everyone in all communities. Belonging is the measure that we use to assess if those inclusion efforts are working effectively. But equity is the goal, right? The tailoring of support to ensure that everyone can thrive, and the recognition of the historical context and the cultural backgrounds that inform who we are and how we move through the world. And so, it is the culture and systems level change that not only identifies, but radically changes the policies, the practices, and the systems that have excluded others.
All right, and so now we're going to talk a little bit more about the specific processes that you might want to examine within your hiring experience. So the question that we have as a focus here is, what is your approach to creating a process that promotes diversity, creates inclusion, and creates opportunities for potential equitable recruitment of talents? So some of the things to think through here. So having rubrics, having anti-bias trainings, that is an important starting point, and something that is already part of the hiring culture and process at a lot of organizations, but it shouldn't be the stopping point. So sometimes we forget that as you're going through a hiring process, it is an investment for candidates too. So you really want to think about what are some of the things that you can do to build on those anti-bias trainings and those rubrics to really ensure a more sustainable, equitable system. So what it is, reflecting and designing changes to the duration and touch points of your hiring system. Again, thinking about things like what are some of the barriers that your talent pool might experience in your process that you can help address. So for example, you might be having several interviews and people are having to take time off from their current job for each of these interviews, or maybe they need to find childcare, multiple points in the process, transportation costs can add up. So those are just a few examples, but really kind of putting yourself in the shoes of your talent pool and thinking about what do these touch points look like? What does the duration of the process look like? Are these things that are going to be a burden for your talent pool? Are there ways that you can help support your candidates throughout the process so it's not so much of a burden, so you can alleviate some of those frustrations and challenges that might end up excluding some people in the process. And then next is allowing fit to be discussed without thinking about what are the specific data and metrics that you're looking for. So I think fit is one of those things that, it does kind of come up in hiring conversations without people recognizing the inherent bias that is pulled out in those conversations. So when you're thinking about things like, does this person really fit in with our culture? Is this someone who we could see being a colleague and see, being part of our organization, of our district? Inherently, you're looking for traits that are going to be sort of reflective of what the community currently looks like. So if you're looking at having a more equitable hiring system, that's going to be inherently biased. So what we encourage districts to do is think about the notion of what does it mean to really be successful. So what are some of the objective needs that you have? What are some of the clear metrics and clear skill sets that you actually that candidates actually do need to have to be successful, and focusing less on some of those biases that might be more about personality or culture or fit. All right. And then lastly, having a process that's designed for all and used for the underrepresented. So again, I think this is a challenge that we often see where districts really just sort of have a one-size-fits-all process where they're really not thinking about what are some of those barriers and challenges that underrepresented communities might be experiencing. So making sure that your process rejects all forms of bias and assumptions, elevating blind spots of the designers. So sort of thinking about what is the more user-friendly approach that you can have for those underrepresented communities, as opposed to designing a process that is intended to serve all people, which will inherently disenfranchise or make the process a little bit more difficult for your underrepresented communities. And so some of the challenges or some of the ideas to think about here are your policies. So again, with that referral process, what are some things you can do to ensure that it's a more equitable approach? Is it something that you want to continue? Do you want to encourage people, if you are going to have a referral process, how are you going to encourage building out a process that invites more diversity into the talent pool? So sometimes you want to think about your job descriptions and review and think about, is it really clear what the metrics are that you're looking for? How are your descriptions going to ensure that people do feel invited and everyone who is qualified is going to apply, as opposed to people who just sort of feel, maybe marginalized by that description or your process? So what are some of those policies that you want to revisit? And again, we really encourage districts to kind of do a thorough audit or check to kind of go through the experience from start to finish to understand what are the policies that you might want to shift to ensure that everyone feels invited to be in the process or to apply for your opportunities. And then practices. So interview debrief process. How are you collecting information and data that you can use to understand what the challenges and burdens might be for a more diverse talent pool? Even internally, what does your debrief look like? What are the metrics that you're looking at? Are you having conversations that are focused more on culture or fit internally, as opposed to really evaluating candidates objectively for the value that they can bring to your organization? And then people. So thinking about things like who's on your interviewing committee. Is this reflective of the community at large? What are the voices that you want to amplify and include to ensure that everyone feels invited, and that you have a community of interviewers that is reflective of the community at large?
Wow, that seems exciting. To have a process like that, it's like, it just sounds, wow, it just opens the gates.
Yeah, it makes you think.
Yeah. Wow.
So a good resource for us while we start diving into this. So.
Thank you. See, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Amy. Just to add to what Christine said about the policy/procedures, we also talked kind of at length about it not just being a hiring policy, but being a whole employment policy. and having building in regular excuse me, regular evaluations, and having the evaluations be tied to the strategic plan, and but also have specific standards and 360 reviews and that sort of thing, that would still kind of in a way mirror the hiring process, so that it's consistent all the way down through, so that when a person is hired, their expectations are clear and they're set up to succeed in the employment part and the exit part.
That reminds me of when we were talking earlier about the professional development, and have we thought about also, because that is what we're hiring them for, have we thought about connecting an individual's professional development to what our strategic plan is? Because that's what our goals are.
Yes.
And
Well, isn't the strategic, the plan, the overall plan for professional development is tied to that strategic plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah, and some of those mandatory trainings that we spoke of, like trauma-informed practices, those tie right to our strategic plan, and people have to take those as at least a baseline. And if you're very interested and passionate, you can go further, and you can even become a trainer and host your own professional development within that site. So it also is promoting teacher leadership. They have opportunities to be trainers themselves in topics that they're really excited and passionate about and experts in. So
it also just helps if you are hiring someone, your job description to a large degree, other than the skill set that you're bringing in, is really, not that it's linear, but it really is, it's a process. It's a process that it's connected, right?
Yeah.
It's connected. It's not, disjointed. It's connected. So that's exciting, I think.
it is, and Angie is heading up some work this year on supervision and evaluation, because our system is, it needs
In need of
review.
revision.
Yes.
2014.
Yeah, so that's one of her goals for this year, is to work with a group of teachers, perhaps students, get them involved and revamp that system so that it's more effective and it's more reflective almost. The current system doesn't typically change practice. It's an evaluation once every 3 years, once you're tenured.
Right, and that's part of the contract, isn't it?
I think it is tied to the contract.
Yes. I mean, that we have we have to, by contract, have a supervision and evaluation process that is shared and transparent with the staff.
Yeah.
That's why they have some opportunity for feedback on that.
Elizabeth.
I also I feel strongly that the evaluation is not just a time for employees to be evaluated, but it's also a time for employees to reflect on their own job. And it would be great if there was a way to incorporate that reflection somewhere so that it goes somewhere. But anyway, I would be glad to, if anybody is interested in working with me on creating an extended policy, Beth. I really feel passionately about it, but I certainly don't want to do it by myself, and I don't want to tie Christine's into having to work with me when she has so much awesome other work that she's got on her plate. So
Yeah, I'm happy to help, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Beth.
Great, thank you.
Do you think I mean, should we, Angie, should you be included in that discussion?
Who's
she say?
Angie?
Oh, Angie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just
That
so that
could be, yeah.
we don't want to make a policy or procedures that undermines or duplicate, it'd be great if it duplicated completely, but it should be aligned, don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah. For sure. So Elizabeth, are you gonna lead that work and you just let me know if you want me or need me? Or do you want me to do it? Okay.
I'm glad to lead it. I cannot do anything on it until after the election.
Okay.
Which is next Tuesday.
Okay. So is it ambitious to say a draft for the next month's meeting?
I think we can do it.
Okay.
A draft, at least.
Start, yeah, a start.
Yeah, I'll have more time. I mean, if we can work on it more before school starts, then I have more space.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Okay, great. And the election is 2 weeks.
Right. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
I know. Yes.
Yeah. I almost had a panic.
Wishful thinking.
Okay.
But it seems like 2 days to me, so.
It does. To me too. A lot of work. Okay, so our next meeting, it's going to be very cool. We are now on items for action. There is also, I guess if we had an item on our agenda called new business, old business kind of thing, and something to think about for our next meeting is to vote on actually bringing the SBA to assist us with the permanent superintendent, so that we can begin looking at the community involvement in the hiring process. That will be next.
And you want that under items for action or new business?
Well, I guess items for discussion and then action, because we would need to vote on it because of the experience. But that would be next. So do we have any items for action tonight? We already voted on the pupil privacy. I don't believe we do.
No.
So we are setting the next agenda. So hiring policy. That's that. Let me see, what day will that meeting be? The Monday, is it the 22nd?
August 22nd?
It's the fourth Monday
Yeah, the fourth Monday.
of August. Wow.
Yeah, so that is the 22nd at 6:30. So, any vacancies, that kind of thing?
Yep.
Actual hiring, and then hiring policy, and engaging the discussion to engage VSBA.
Okay.
And Elizabeth.
Amy, I can't remember. Are we having a retreat or no?
We could combine this next meeting with a retreat.
Okay.
When we were talking about it at our last meeting, dates that were being thrown out were not workable because of other meetings that were happening. And it became very confusing. I think, was that the meeting that I was freezing and I couldn't read? So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's much nicer in here tonight.
Yeah, we shut the air off before,
Yeah.
before the meeting.
I think it might be a good idea to just quickly and easily and simply set a schedule for touching old policies, so that so it stays on our radar, so that we do it consistently, and so we have have it be a regular item. But if we know when they're going to be scheduled, we'll have the time to sort of look at them in advance and
Right, and
heard about
Christine
the ones
sent
we
me
care
an email, and policies kind of went off my radar in the last 3 or 4
We've been a little
weeks.
busy.
A little.
But we all have, I have no excuse, 'cause other
I just
people
wanted
are
to make
messy.
sure we had the required policy, so I just made a spreadsheet.
Yeah, and it's a matter of just looking at them and saying, okay, this quarter, we're going to look at these policies.
Yeah, I think the more consistently we do it, the easier it'll be to get
Oh,
them done.
right, and then we won't have 30 all at once that were crying.
I will say you're in pretty good shape when I cross-reference the dates of when the policies were, remember we sunset all the local policies and adopted the WSASU policies, I think it was 2019. So none of them are super outdated. There are some that have been updated at VSBA, and we are missing a few recommended. We have all the required, which is good.
Yeah, that is good.
But we also, I believe last year we committed to at least touching the policies. We don't have to,
Yeah.
we don't have to, go through the whole rigmarole of re-upping on them or anything like that. We just want to make sure that they get touched.
Right, that, so we all see them and know that, oh yes, we do have a policy on this, and maybe have a short discussion on it.
And so that we
Yes.
all know what the policy, so we're all familiar with the policies too. I mean, some of them are short, some of them are long and really boring and arduous, but again, we don't have to take 3 months with each policy. We can just give them a look and then decide.
If it's
Right.
helpful, I think we can share that spreadsheet out if it's helpful. So
Okay,
people
yeah,
can just
and I will
take a look at it, yeah.
because I think having a schedule of, we'll look at these 2 policies at this meeting, these 2 policies, and just go through the whole, so it's
Yeah, it just makes it,
consistent
you
and-
know what the
Yeah.
expectation is.
you know, and then maybe 2 years from now, we're looking at those first 2 policies again.
Yeah.
So it's
That makes sense.
a regular system. And that the system outlives anyone who is currently on the board or whatever.
Right.
That it's a known fact.
Does it make sense to look at, for you to make that schedule, or do we
I think
look at it
working,
together?
but yeah, looking at it together.
Okay.
It's just a matter of
Making some choices.
getting some.
Okay. So we'll connect.
Yes, that
Okay.
sounds great. And we could even bring a
Draft.
report on that, yeah.
Okay.
And that will get me to focus on that.
Got a lot going on, Amy.
Okay, was there anything else? So, maybe talking about how, because did I say employment,
Yeah, the vacancies, yeah,
Yeah,
something
and
nice.
kind of how an update on that and how we're all
Making it work.
looking in shape for the beginning of school because it starts that next week.
Yes.
In 2 weeks? In how many weeks?
It'll
School?
start that week
Okay,
for new teachers and in service for staff. Yep,
Yeah.
starts on the 24th of August. Time flies.
It does. So unless anyone has any other comments or questions, I'll take a motion to adjourn our meeting and thank everyone for coming and for contributing to the equity conversation and the employment hiring conversation. I think there's some really exciting work being done here in our educational communities. So thank you. So a motion, please.
motion.
By Rebecca.
Yeah.
And is there a second?
Second.
By Nancy. And I'm going to go down because I just love this roll call. Anne Marie.
Aye.
Beth.
Aye.
And we have a new person, Colleen Spence.
Aye.
Davis.
Can you hear me?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Elizabeth.
Aye.
Jamie.
Aye.
Nancy.
Aye.
Rebecca.
Aye.
And I, Amy, am an aye. And I want to thank everyone. Enjoy the rest of July. It's lovely.
It's almost over.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Yeah, it's just going so quick.
8:13.
It does.
Tonight, it's quick too, right?
Yeah.